We're speaking today with Margaret England, who's a candidate for seat 4, St. Augustine Beach Commissioner. Welcome, and thank you for coming. We usually just like to start out, if you don't mind, by telling us who you are and why you're sitting in that chair.
My name is Margaret England. I've lived in St. Augustine Beach since 2000, about 14 years, and I love the community. When I came down here, I immediately picked up on how laid back and wonderful it is, and I signed up to serve on planning and zoning, and have served on planning and zoning as much as work allows me to, and been part of the community. And I'm running for the commission seat because we are poised for development again and have 2 hotels come online, and I want to make sure that we retain our laid-back atmosphere. We worked with the City of St. Augustine, a spirit of cooperation, what we can get done together as far as our challenges and tourism council, and also to make sure that we start again with the St. Augustine Beach Vision Plan to make sure that the destination and the site of what you see of St. Augustine Beach conveys the story that we want to convey.
Let me ask you something that came up just immediately. When you said you're on the PZB, how many years or how many terms, or is that a 4-year term there? It is, right?
I think it's a 3-year term, and I was on planning and zoning from 2004 to 2008 when work took me away to a different location, and immediately when I could come back, I applied again and was immediately approved and elected vice chair. So I've worked on planning and zoning with the city employees and several of the commissioners, and have a great working relationship with everyone.
So are you, I'm sorry, still understanding, are you on the board now?
I am on the board right now.
So you went from 2004 to 2008,
and then
November
2013 was put on the board again and elected vice chair.
Okay. So when you said I have as much time as work allows me, you mean that work took you away for that time, or do you mean it's hard for you to get to the meetings?
No. I don't miss meetings. What I mean is that I served until I was 2008. You know, we had the big recession, and work took me away to a different location as soon as I could come back, and I kept my home here the whole time. So as soon as I came back, I applied to serve again and was appointed immediately and elected vice chair. So in total, I have planning and zoning experience of about 17 years with North Carolina, and then coming down here for planning and zoning. So about 4.5 years total at St. Augustine Beach, with 4 years being from 2004 to 2008. And then since November of 2013, almost another year under my belt. Okay,
so the push was that you will have no trouble having the time to do the city commission if you're elected.
No, I do not, because I have managed a job in planning and zoning and service to the city for quite some time.
You mentioned in your introduction, vision plan is something that interests you quite a bit. And what would, if you're elected, would be, say, the top 3 things that you would want to accomplish in your first term as a commissioner? Not necessarily in order, but the top 3 things.
One of the most important things is that spirit of cooperation and collaboration with the City of St. Augustine and the Tourism Council to make sure we address some of the immediate problems we have with tourism. The beach, maintaining our beach access and our facilities there at Pier Park is absolutely critical for St. Augustine Beach and the community in general, because we have a lovely beach. And then making sure that we pick out, in fact, in front of planning and zoning right now, we have been charged with taking a look at the vision plan, going through the recommendations, what we have done so far, what we probably can't accomplish, and then picking out the rest of the recommendations and prioritizing or making a recommendation to the council, the commission, on what should be short-term, what should be long-term, and going through it, putting life back into the vision plan.
Do the city task the planning and zoning people with that? Is that something they ask you to do?
Yes, the commission did ask the current St. Augustine Beach Planning and Zoning Board to review the commission plan, and I made the motion at the last meeting. I know that there was a couple of suggestions made, but I believe we should approach it in a very organized manner, take a look at the plan, do a spreadsheet, what was recommended, what we've done so far, what we might need to tweak, especially on ordinances, and then what we can't do or is not really feasible. Some roundabouts of Pope Road and some other things were recommended that are probably not going to work for us. But then with the remaining issues, work together with the Planning and Zoning Board with a recommendation of priorities, and hope to get public comment on this, because it's the vision of what you see, what story St. Augustine Beach tells when you come into town. What is it going to tell you? And that a vision plan was a lot of it. A lot of the ordinances, the mixed-use ordinances, we've already put in place. We put in place a development, a design code. We probably need to do something more on signs, and we definitely need to enforce our current landscaping ordinance and maybe do something on more on landscaping. And our parquettes are a jewel. Those are some things that we are so lucky to have those. We just need to do strategic planning on how which ones we would develop and in which way, and what can we afford to do step by step. There's also some traffic calming recommendations in the vision plan, and what can we do, what do we want to do. But it does take collaboration. You've got to listen to the public. You have to listen to the businesses, and we want to make sure that the public come to the planning and zoning meetings, have input, and that with the commissioners, and that we just don't lose it again. We lost this there were some things we put in place, but during the hard years, the recession, it kind of sat on the back burner, and now we have an opportunity with the commission asking planning and zoning to do something with it to really make it alive again.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that was me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Were you going to ask a follow-up question on that?
Kind of.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll ask.
Yeah, this interested me because you're on the zoning board and you're looking at the city commission. One of the complaints that I hear about saying that not about either board but about government on the beach is that it seems like the city commission and the PZB pass hot potatoes back and forth, and they never get to the forefront. It's like, oh, we'll stick you with this, or we'll stick you with this. Do you see that at all? And do you see, I mean, just comment on that. Do you see that as true at all? And if it is, would that be something you'd look at?
When the commission asks planning and zoning to do something, sometimes they just want our input and a recommendation. The attorney there will let us know whether it's, as far, spending money, that's definitely the commission's prerogative, the budget and what they're going to spend money on. But if we can take a look at it, maybe do some research, maybe we can dive a little deeper, we can get staff to dive a little deeper, we can do a little bit more research, present that to the commission to help them make decisions, I think we should do that. For example, they passed food trucks to us. They've passed the vision plan back to us.
Noise as well too, right? Noise ordinance even went to you?
Yes, and sometimes it does go back and forth a little bit to make sure we understand exactly what the commission is asking us to do. But we definitely, for example, the vision plan, I was just so delighted that was brought back up again. On food trucks, the Planning and Zoning Board suggested research and temporary ordinance with a sunset provision, which is what the commissioners decided, the mayor and the commissioners decided to do. It's going to have a sunset provision, which is what Planning and Zoning Board recommended. So I think it can work nicely. I know there's some complaints about it, but I look at it as a task to be researched and done, and you complete it and you do the best you can with the best research, especially with staff, making sure that they help you with that research, and then you get it back to your commissioners to help them make a decision. But it does take, you got to do the work.
I was gonna ask about food trucks.
That's what I was going to ask. There you go.
Do you have a position, or what is your position?
Food trucks came to planning and zoning because the commission asked us to take a look at it. We took a look at and rather than just shut it down completely or just say no, the Planning and Zoning Board and I did make the motion. And sometimes I'm known as the one that makes the motion just for purposes of moving it along. You know, you make the motion, that didn't pass, okay, now we'll make another one. But you do need to move it along and see what you can come up with. So the Planning and Zoning Board made the motion of a conditional use ordinance with a sunset provision, and we outlined all the provisions that should be addressed in more detail than the draft ordinance that we had in front of us. The City Commission took a look at it, and it went back and forth with trying to think about how it impacts the current businesses that have land there, that they are permanent businesses, and it's ended up with we're gonna try. We're not gonna just shut it down completely. We're gonna try, but it'll be like a pilot. It'll definitely be an ordinance with some heavy restrictions. See how it works with a sunset provision. But again, you've got to look at that. What story does it convey? I know a food truck park was maybe suggested, but you've got to think about the vision plan and how the food trucks might work with that vision plan. What would work, what wouldn't, what works with the traffic and pedestrian. So you have to do the best you can with a short-term ordinance and then work out the kinks like a pilot.
Parking, of course, was a big issue over the summer with the summer tourists and the events at the pier and everything. And how do you envision addressing any concerns in the future? Do you have a feeling one way or another about adding parking, or whose responsibility that would be, or just your thoughts on it, I guess?
The shuttle, I took the shuttle myself to the pier, Music at the Beach, and I loved it. It was so easy to just park, take the shuttle, not worry about it, and come back. And I believe that, again, with that spirit of cooperation and collaboration with City of St. Augustine, some sort of private-public transportation, those ideas are starting to reach a critical mass now, and will, with that work and spirit of coming up with something, because we're almost symbiotic now with hotels coming on at the beach and tourism in the old city, that we need to work out something so that we can move our tourists, and make it easy for them and the businesses. They have a stake in this too. I'm sure they would want their patrons to be able to get to all the wonderful destinations and back and forth easily. And also the residents. I've heard so many residents say, I would go downtown more often if I didn't have to worry about the parking, or vice versa. So I can't stress enough that spirit of collaboration and how we get the stakeholders involved and set up something and find a way. There has to be SMEs and experts on grants and how we get something through the state and the county and the tourism council. We can figure this out. It's finally reached the point where I think a lot of the elected officials and candidates are starting, okay, yes, we can do this. We just need to get together and figure out how we're going to do that. The Record had an article on the alligator farm recently. And in that article, there was a statement that there was a trolley that ran back in the 1800s, 1893 or something, trolley that ran back and forth between the old city and the beach. Now, if they can do something, why can't we? So I know we can, and it would benefit the whole area as a destination, plus relieve some of the congestion for residents. And I don't think you want to have the city of St. Augustine Beach buy expensive beach property and turn it into a parking lot. Greg, I just don't think that's maybe the best use of beach property.
I agree with you. Switching topics, I know there's 5 amendments that will be on the ballot and that directly affect St. Augustine Beach. Do you have a feeling on those one way or another, or any recommendations or ones that you would steer people away from?
As a candidate, I'm not sure that it's up to me to steer people one way or another on those charter amendments. I know that the committee did an excellent job. I listened to the presentation. I also was at the commission meetings and listened to what the commissioners decided, and the commissioners presented and put on the ballot the ones they felt that were the most appropriate. And so I believe that there is going to be, what I would recommend for citizens is that they attend the public forum on the charter amendments that is going to take place in early October, sponsored by the Civic Association and the League of Women Voters. Pat Gill's going to be there explaining it, and that participation that way would be the best way for citizens to make their own decision on those charter amendments. It is a governance document, and so what a citizen should feel is appropriate for our governance and our form of city management is what I would recommend them trying to understand.
I have a totally different question off another topic. Recently, there was a push to increase the salary of commissioners. What do you think about that? Do you think there should be an increase in the salary of the city commissioner on the beach?
I did not decide to run for commissioner based on salary. In fact, I did not even know what the salary was. So I don't think that increasing salary has or what the salary is, has a large influence on whether a person decides to run for commissioner or not. It's usually a sense of, I want to serve, I want to make a difference, I want to help out. And so I did not support, or my personal feeling was, not now. This is not the time to increase commissioner's salary. We still have a tight budget. We've got a lot we want to do for our residents and our resident businesses, and I didn't think the timing was quite right, considering we're just coming out of a recession. Trying to keep the millage rate the same, increasing revenues, and oh boy, do we have a lot we need to do with those revenues.
Along the same vein, events, you mentioned events and things going on. The other thing that the commission did but then tabled was consider adding a full-time events person for about $54,000 a year. Would you support that?
I would have to see the job description. I would have to have the facts laid out in front of me. What's in the job description, the level of detail, professionalism, certifications on whether or not that was, I did question that, and what I understood was they needed to go back to the table and develop that job description a little bit better with more detail on what's needed.
So the Civic Association is separate, and they have that planning person, right? I mean, they do the events right now, the Civic Association.
the Civic Association sponsors Music at the Beach and the Farmers Market. And those are events that but the city of St. Augustine Beach also has a lot of events. Beach blast off. There was the part-time events coordinator, Mike Cunningham, at the last commission meeting did make a list of all the events. There were quite a few. I'm not saying there's nothing to do with. I mean, there's a lot of work, but I believe that the recommendation, and there was questions from the public, and that the city manager is going to go back and work on that job description. He's got a task to do a little bit more work on that job description, which is not any different than when any corporation wants to add a job. You have to prove your point, and in pretty much detail.
The other one I want to ask about were the parks. Of course, we own a couple of big parks, which is the Oceanfront Park, and then the park right behind Public Shopping Center there. Some money was spent to improve the Oceanfront Park area not too long ago. And
you mean Oceanfront? Do you mean Ocean Hammock there by Sea Cowling?
And then there's Ocean. What's the other ocean?
Well, there's the one by Publix that is parkland, but it's not developed.
Ocean Hammock, I think.
Ocean Hammock is that piece of property and the beach walkover we got from Maratea, and so you have a walkover with a little bit of property there for parking.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, so that is, we own that, of course.
Right.
And some money has been spent to put parking in there and some other improvements. The property that we owned before behind Publix, that's of course sat, largely undeveloped for some time.
Right.
So how do you give a feeling about what you would like to see done with either one of those parcels going forward from here?
Well, the beach walkover on the southern end of St. Augustine Beach is great public access, and I think we have 36 public beach accesses throughout the city. It's amazing. It's wonderful. So I think that's something for us to be proud of, that beach access. Making sure that our residents have access to all those beach accesses with not a lot of parking, but minimal parking, reasonable parking for residents, would be something that I would be interested in. I do not have a plan for the piece of park-owned property, and I believe it is going to be owned by the county, and so that, again, it's not going to be up to the city of St. Augustine Beach completely. It's going to, what's the county going to want to do with it? And so I don't know yet. Again, that spirit of collaboration and cooperation with the county, what is the highest and best use? How can that help our residents? That would something to be determined.
Okay, so you don't really have any opinion on what to do with that particular parcel right now, but I think the long-term plan on the oceanfront side, where the walkover is, I think is maybe add some bathrooms and some other infrastructure.
That is in keeping with what we already have in the vision plan and the strategic plan to offer beach access. Yes, that's definitely a very good idea.
That segue is something I want to ask you about, because you mentioned the city 2 or 3 times how important it is to develop the relationships. But the county owns the pier, the county's doing all the work on that big hotel, and the county's got that other piece. And you haven't mentioned, and maybe it was just an oversight or we haven't gotten to it, but the county's a big player out there, and it is important to set up these relationships with the county.
That was an oversight, yes, absolutely. We are now, it's not just St. Augustine Beach. We are an MSA, or we're an area that is going to be a destination for the whole area. So it's important to set up those regular meetings and be part of the challenges, the solutions, be part of figuring out what's the best thing to do with the county for the pier and the hotels that are coming up, any of the property that is owned by the county. We should be there. We should be assisting, not just complaining or criticizing. We need to be part of the solution. All the stakeholders have to get together and figure out what is the best way to address our challenges and make sure it is, cooperative.
I have one more question to you. This is a what if, because we're looking at all this different thing, and the special events coordinator is something that may be more. I mean, it may not be more than is needed out there, but because, especially with a city that, and I love the analogy you had about the old trolley coming over, by the way, but it could be, and it could be a possibility that maybe somehow, because the events you don't want to overlap a lot of events with the city either, that it might be that the city's special events type people, it could almost be cost shared and have the special events overviewed as one group. You could kick in 20 and the city's kicking in 30, and then you're not stumbling over each other, setting up parades and stuff. I just wonder, that would just be sort of an editorial that would come to my mind, that's something to look at. And would it be something that you think would be worth looking at?
Absolutely, because we leverage already. St. Augustine Beach leverages already with the county for the police department. We leverage already with the fire department. So if you have an expert somewhere, we need to partner like this with anywhere in this area where it affects all of us. I mean, I do that every day in my job. I have to make sure that I get all the stakeholders in, that we leverage the legal, the compliance, the salespeople, the operations, and it's not just, okay, here's what you do. You got to figure out how to implement it. So you have to work together, get the stakeholders together, and why not leverage off the SMEs, the experts on, if somebody is working on events, or somebody's an expert on transportation or engineering. When I was in planning and zoning up in Charlotte, there were 3 towns up in north of Charlotte, Davidson, where Davidson College is, Cornelius, and Huntersville. Those 3 towns worked together to create that, because they were all developing like crazy, and so we worked together, and there were some bright young people and interns that worked and came and helped out, and it really made a difference. And they were trying to figure out a transportation system into downtown Charlotte and back. So that spirit I just can't stress enough the spirit of cooperation that is really needed, and the timing is perfect because we're on the cusp of redevelopment and more development coming online.
You got one?
You had one question that you asked the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Okay. What do you think about Max Royal?
Max is a wonderful public servant, and he has served the city graciously, and he has guided us on the budget. And I mean, 25 years that he served the city, and I can't say enough about his service and loyalty to the city. And good for him. And maybe I can't say anything negative, but and that is not up to me, because I am not his I'm not his supervisor, not yet anyway. So I believe that any of our City of St. Augustine Beach employees, anytime we get a chance to have input from the outside, an intern or a part-time person to help along and bring in new ideas, I do believe the City of St. Augustine Beach ought to consider summer interns and to help out with some of the tasks, because Max runs a pretty thin shop, and he has done that well. So why not get interns who would love the chance to help out at maybe Flagler College? Boy, would these kids love to spend their summer with an internship in city management, and how much he could train them, and we would benefit also. So there's always that, always benefits on how to get tasks done.
So you say the city could use some newer ideas? I'm not trying to put, I kept waiting for the Max but. You kept going Max and, but there's no real but. He's doing a great job.
You can always point out me, you, anybody. You can go, well, this person does a great job, but there's something, there's
Absolutely.
always improvements any one of us can make. And I'm sure Max, in his review, he even did an article on it, and he says, yeah, there's some things I need to improve. He admitted that in his article. It's public. So I'll go along with Max's article and what he says he needs to improve.
But you support him?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
What do you think differentiates yourself from your opponent?
I believe, and I'm not going, what I'm going to say is what I bring to the table. And what I believe I bring to the table is, in my 3 C's, which is commitment. I'm really committed to making St. Augustine Beach and the area a destination, and keeping alive the ambiance and the atmosphere that our residents have voiced very loudly they want to keep, all of our residents. And that's my commitment, to listen to those residents. Capability, I have years of experience in planning and zoning and service to where my city, and want to assist and help any way I can. And the community is another one of my 3 C's, is keeping, the community tells us what they want, that, and I've heard it from the community, they want to improve the look of, when you look down A1A Beach Boulevard, they want it to look a certain way and tell a definite story. It's going to be different than the city of St. Augustine. It's a beach community, and they want it to look nice.
Okay.
You referenced earlier what you do every day in your work. What is your day job? What is your profession?
I have, since law school, I have worked for various large mortgage bankers as a compliance officer.
Okay.
And these are making sure that when the mortgage banking entity fulfills the American dream, fair lending, you comply with the rules and regulations on good faith estimate and fees, and that they get mortgage loans. It's been a challenge lately. But so I've worked for Legacy, Wachovia, First Union, SunTrust, Everbank, now US Bank. And there is a big change in the good faith estimate in HUD 1 coming. And it'll be a huge change again. It's going to be one of the biggest. So that's what I do. And it's helping with the American dream. So it's not unusual that I wouldn't be interested in land use development, and planning and zoning and government, small town government, because it just kind of fits.
You touched earlier on the retraction of the budget, the tight ship that Max runs, and then of course some needed improvements in the city signage, things like that you pointed toward. During the retraction, of course, code enforcement, that position basically, I think, retired, and it was not replaced. It became like Gary's responsibility, who's the planning and building director. Now that it's improving, do you foresee, adding that position back at a more routine scale and approaching some of the problems in the city that way?
I would have to do more research first to see what's out there and what the facts are and what's not being done. And then based on research, facts, what's not being done, what's needed, and our budget, what could be done to improve.
Okay. Thank you. And I think the only other one that we asked was about a noise ordinance. How you felt about the noise ordinance discussions that have been occurring recently, and your feeling about the need for a noise ordinance, or the extent of a noise ordinance.
Well, we do have a noise ordinance, and there's a difference between noise and a nuisance. And our residents have said, and we want to be pedestrian friendly with outdoor seating. And yes, on A1A Beach Boulevard, there is going to be music, there is going to be a little noise, and that's not a bad thing. But you don't want to, you've got to have something that can be used to enforce a nuisance, if something is a nuisance. So if our noise ordinance needs to be looked at again to see that, can we differentiate, and can there be a way that the police can take care of a nuisance versus, there's nothing wrong with music. So I think right now the commission has asked our police department to track how many true calls we are getting on nuisance, a problem. And then based on doing the research, the facts, what do we need? Because we definitely want that pedestrian friendly kind of strolling down the atmosphere with outside seating. We don't want to discourage that.
So you're not yet in favor of maybe altering the existing ordinance yet? You want to do a little bit more research and see what comes
Right,
of that?
right. And that's what the commission has asked the police department to do, and to see if we really do have a problem with noise that is a nuisance.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else.
I don't either. We always ask, is there something that we forgot to ask you, or something you'd like to talk about that we didn't bring up?
I think you've been very thorough in the questions and putting me on the hot seat. But I think the questions are great, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and express what I'd like to get done. My passion is the vision plan, and creating that view of St. Augustine Beach that residents have told me they want something to be proud of. And of course, during the time period when budget was so tight, we couldn't do that. But maybe if we start looking at this and prioritizing what's feasible and budgeting for it, Max comes up with some great ways to do. I think we've finished quite a bit of our infrastructure. I'm not saying everything is done, but I think the sewer lines are primarily done. And we always have to keep up with infrastructure first and then see what else we can afford to do. But you have to prioritize. And so that would be one of the things I would want to really take a look at. And that's on our budget, our ticket, and then on the parking and transportation. That has to be the county, tourism council, state, federal grants, whatever. That has to be collaborative. And so I'm looking forward to serving, as always, the city of St. Augustine Beach, and hoping that I can be part of their future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.